Joining us now, as he does every Monday, he's the former executive producer of Hockey Night in Canada, the co-host of the Bob McCown podcast. It's our buddy John Shannon here with Sekeres and Price. How you doing, John?
Happy Monday, boys. And to all of our American friends that listen to the podcast, happy Memorial Day.
Usually syncs up with Victoria Day, doesn't it?
No, it's usually before Victoria Day.
Is it?
Isn't it Memorial Day
No,
today?
it's always the week after, guys. It's always the week after because I was all the years that between Hockey Night and working at the NHL, we tried our damnedest to avoid starting the Stanley Cup final on the night of Memorial Day because it is one of the lowest television viewing nights of the year when it comes to American households because everybody's out in the backyard, everybody's watching the fireworks, everybody's barbecuing.
Right.
Or as they say in America, grilling.
Yes.
Everybody's grilling.
Well, hey, this keeps going on. We can avoid 4th of July as the first day of the Stanley.
Well, so trivia question: Do you know the how far the Stanley Cup final could go this year? Do you know what date the last day could possibly be?
26?
30. June 30. June 30. We're time-wise, we're halfway through, boys. We're halfway through time-wise.
No, I know.
We only have 3 more series to go, but we're halfway through the Stanley Cup playoffs.
No.
Is it bad that I'm praying for like 5-game series so that it can happen a little bit quicker? Like, let's get to the final already.
Alas, we can't move those off-season dates up.
Well, they've done their damnedest. When you think the draft is only 7 days after the last game and free agency is the 13th of July, they're trying their damnedest to get back to July 1st.
Well, we'll get there. I think one more year and we'll get there. Question, will the Edmonton Oilers get there? Stunning victory in the Battle of Alberta. And then they flew to our town yesterday, John, for those who don't know. Explain that.
They did indeed. And we have seen this a ton here in Toronto where teams are busing to Buffalo because if you drive across the border, you do not require any paperwork. So it's much easier to drive across than it is to fly, where you need a proof of a COVID positive or a negative COVID test. Whereas if you drive, you don't need to do any testing at all. So everybody who wants to go to Costco in Bellingham, they can go to Costco in Bellingham anytime they want. But at this point, what the Oilers have done, and they did it in the LA series, is they fly to Vancouver, bus from Vancouver International to Bellingham, and then take a charter from Bellingham to Denver.
Trains, planes, automobiles still on the travel side of thing. Well, let's deal with the team they just vanquished, the Calgary Flames. Boy, it may be the busiest offseason of any in Calgary when you take a look at who is due a new contract, whether it's UFA Johnny Gaudreau, RFA Matthew Tkachuk. How do you see the Flames offseason proceeding?
Well, I think, and everybody's mentioned Matthew Tkachuk, but he's at $9 million now, Matt. So his qualifying offer is higher than 9. I suspect that that doesn't really pinch the budget near as much as the Gaudreau one will. And I think that Johnny was pretty straightforward on Saturday when he told everybody that, he's going to go home and sit and talk with his agent, Louis Gross. He's going to talk with his family and decide what's best for John Gaudreau. That in the end is the key. And on paper, even though he wasn't a Hart Trophy finalist, and I think he should have been a Hart Trophy finalist, on paper, he's a $10 million player. And I think that's what, Brad Treliving and ownership in Calgary have to come to grips if they're prepared to have, in theory, 2 $10 million players in Tkachuk and in Gaudreau.
And other teams do have that. We've seen it. We have yet to see how that works on a winning team per se, like an actual double digits. And that might seem like we're parsing things a little bit close versus a $9.5 million player. But, we've seen a lot of these deep teams that have a lot of guys making a lot of money, but they don't necessarily have that official double digit player on their roster.
No, but just as an afterthought there, Blake, Peter Chiarelli signed Leon Draisaitl a year or a bit before he was dismissed that deal looks like it's like a bonus baby through and through now. When you think about it, he's at $8.5 million for what he's done. And it's just a great contract. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what about any fears? Sky is falling Chicken Little saying Matthew Tkachuk's just going to accept that qualifying offer and go to unrestricted free agency. He's American. He wants to go to the States. How do you quell those fears?
Brady didn't. But what you do know with the Tkachuk family is that they will stick to their guns. They will be true to what they think is right. I mean, do you remember the angst that the Brady deal caused in Ottawa until that moment that he showed up? I think it was opening night, if memory serves me, and waved at the crowd and said, "I'm back and I'm going to play in a couple of days." So, the one thing I would wonder about, and this is just me, I wonder if there's enough unfinished business in Calgary. I do think both Tkachuk and Gaudreau like living there, but they were supposed to go farther than the second round, and they were supposed to go farther than 5 games. So you have to wonder in so many ways. The pragmatic side says Johnny's just going to go for the money. Matthew's just going to go for the money. Matthew's still a restricted free agent. Here's the other thing. Is Matthew the type of guy that gets an offer sheet? Is there somebody out there looking at Matthew Tkachuk as an offer sheet? Because, I mean, Kotkaniemi got an offer sheet.
But that would have to be a huge offer sheet. Like that, to scare away Calgary, because you just talked about it. He already was making a big phrase. So to scare Calgary, what do you have to pay Matthew? Like 11.5?
I don't know. Hey, in this day and age, is he worth it? I mean, he is a great hockey player. And can he change the fortunes of your franchise?
10-5, gentlemen, is 4 first-round picks in compensation. So it would have one would think has to come in just under 10-5, which would still be 2 firsts, a second,
but
and
if that's the case, that's a pittance of a raise for him. So it's going to have to be a heck of a lot more. I'm not suggesting the offer sheet is realistic, and I'm not paid by either the Players Association or the league to say offer sheet just so that we can say there was concentration of offer sheets. But but when you think about what offer sheets are supposed to be, is Matthew Tkachuk the type of guy that's supposed to garner an offer sheet? Is he a franchise-changing player?
Well, he's certainly higher up the ranks than Jesperi Kotkaniemi or Ryan Kessler back when he was a young player all those years ago. If you remember Philadelphia, he told us a great story about that. Let's move on. Volatile year for the New York Rangers when you think back to the end of last year and Tom Wilson beating the team up and James Dolan swearing we won't get pushed around and making all the changes. And is their offseason predicated on what happens in Game 7 against the Hurricanes? Like, do you think it could be an entirely different offseason for them if they lose tonight than if they win? Because if they win, Final Four from whence they came, that's a pretty good year for the Blue Shirts.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because when you look at who they have, when you look at what they've gone through, they've only had Barclay Goodrow for 4 playoff games. This Game 6 was the only one of this series that he's played in so far. Chris Drury's changes at the deadline. Andrew Kopp's an unrestricted free agent. Do you want him back? Does he want to stay? I think he wants to stay in New York. The question becomes: is the coach, is management happy with the construct of this team? And for the most part, I think they are. Because it's still a young team that, their blue line is really, really good and really, really young. When you think Adam Fox is a veteran player on that team, young Schneider has, came out of the Western League. He's a heck of a hockey player. He's 20, 21 years old. I'm one to think that Chris Drury will do minor tweaking. I don't think he'll do anything major. Even if they get eliminated in Game 7 tonight, I just think they feel they're on the right course finally. And it's amazing how adding a Ryan Reeves to the plan changes a lot of that perspective. And let's face it, Ryan Reeves has changed a bit of this series, the way he's played at home, at least.
All this is to say, John, no more need for JT Miller if they win this Game 7.
Oh, so there's the Vancouver
That's
angle. Right.
I'm surprised you didn't reverse engineer it, actually.
I know. I know. You're always trying to think of that Vancouver angle, and I think I'm usually pretty good at it. But I don't. I think that I think that they're pretty happy with the way where they are right now. I mean, let's face it. I think they might have been able to win this series had they got 6 games out of Artemi Panarin already. That becomes Kreider's done his job. Zibanejad's done his job. It's a time for Artemi Panarin to raise his hockey stick in the air, and just like he did in the last series, scored in the overtime game in Game 7 to win the series. So don't be surprised.
Lastly, we wanted to talk to you about the whole controversy at the end of Game 5, the Battle of Alberta, and the disallowed goal because it was directed or kicked, if according to some, into the crease. We asked a poll on Friday, I got more than 3,000 votes on it. Should just all goals off the skate be allowed? It came in at about 50-50. I saw our friend Mr. Dreger tweet that he would not be surprised if the language of that rule gets looked at the offseason. Where were you on the allowance of that goal and what's to come with the kick-in rule going forward after that?
Well, there's a couple of ways to approach this. First of all, Blake Coleman did admit that he moved his skate. He did direct the puck with his skate. Secondly, the people that I talked to at the league were adamant that you do not have to take your skate off the ice to have a kicking motion. You can drag it. So if you put those two together, and you say, well, then it possibly is a distinct kicking motion. The one thing I would say is that in knowing a bit of the background of what went on in the Situation Room that night was the 4 major parties involved in the discussion in Toronto, plus the 2 guys in Calgary on the headset and Eric Furlat and Wes McConnell. The other 4 guys were adamant. Privately, before they made their feelings known, they said to themselves, that's not, something smells here. That's not a good goal. They said it individually. It was unanimous that they all felt that with all the goals they've seen this year, with all the goals they've seen in the playoffs, that it did not pass the smell test. And, I'm a trusting soul when it comes to those people. I believe in them. I think they do an amazing job. And if the 4 of them, not 1 or 2, and then it wasn't 12 angry men and they had to convince the other 2 guys.
Right.
All 4 of them said privately and separately, something smells about this goal. And so you have to go with it. The definition of distinct kicking emotion, Darren's right. They are going to look at it. They have to.
That's the thing. And, Blake made the case on Friday. He thought it was the right call based on the way the rule is written. Where we're at is...
I agree with you.
Is it a bad rule? Like, do we need to look at the rule? Do we need to put pendulum motion back in? Do we need to put, skate on or off the ice?
Yeah, maybe.
Back in?
Here's the thing. I'm all for allowing as many goals as possible. I want them off your backside. I want them off your skate. Exactly. I want them off your helmet. I want them anywhere. As long as you can make sure you're not creating more risk of one of those darn blades slicing somebody. Mm-hmm. If you can come up with a remedy that says, if I walk up there and do a Louis Passaglia and put the puck in the net, I'm aging myself, but if I do a Louis Passaglia, but I have to guarantee that I'm not anywhere infringing on anybody's dangerous play. That's 3 sports we got going now. That to me is what we should be doing. I mean, I want more goals. I want pucks off of skates, off of butts, off of shoulders. I don't want them batted in because batting is still batted in with your hand because batting is still, illegal outside of your own blue line. So I think they have to rework it.
We'll let you go and take that. The pride of Oliver, BC.
Well, that might be the league saying, "What are you doing? You're ripping me."
Until next Monday, my friend.
Cheers.
The bad phone to Gary. He still got one. Yeah, not surprised.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was a landline.
Oh my gosh, the bad phone. There it is.
Gary's stuck in the dark ages.
We talked about it Friday. I see everybody Ray Ferraro chimed in on our poll question. It is still very hard. it is still very hard to get this to a black and white rule, even if you deem blade on the ice to be the great determining factor here. But I would hope that they would look at the rule as Dreger surmised, because I do think that that's a goal that probably should count. Like, I don't think he's imperiling anybody the way he moves his leg or the way he moves his skate. I don't think it's within the spirit of the rule.
I said it last Friday, but I'll repeat it here. What you don't want is that if you're in the crease, and I highlighted a Zach Hyman goal in that game where he's on the doorstep, he's on the far post, if you will, on the open side, shooters on the other side. You want the goal scorer that's on the doorstep to have to use the stick, because that's hard when you're in tight quarters. It's hard to get that puck on the stick because your stick is long, and everybody who's played hockey knows that, sometimes if the puck is too close to your body, it jams you a little bit. Well, the skill play there is, how do you find a way to use your stick? So I don't want us to get to a point where, screw it, I'm not going to use my stick, I'm just going to try and kick the puck in because it's too hard for me to get into position to get my stick blade on it. I want the onus, the responsibility on that goal scorer at the post to be able to use the stick. Like, that's the skill play.
Fair enough. And I'm with you. I don't want people kicking at pucks, as John says. Like, that is, if you're familiar with Clint Malarchuk or Richard Zednick or some of the episodes, the scary episodes with the skate blades, you don't want people kicking at pucks. But I think if your skate blade is on the ice and you're redirecting a puck in, even if you're pushing the leg, if you will, I think that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I think that's just
Just drawing up that language.
No, I hear you.
Yeah.